Welcome to my channel, where the scariest stories come to life. Before we dive into today's chilling tale, make sure to hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications, so you never miss a story. Now, let's get into the horror. One day, my friends Tanaka, Sato, and I decided to head to the beach. We didn't have a specific destination in mind, so we just drove around until we found a nice spot. "Hey, isn't this place good?" I asked. "Idiot, it's way too crowded." "We need more space," Tanaka replied. After some back and forth, we found a sandy beach mixed with rocky areas a little further away from the crowds. There were hardly any people, and the atmosphere felt almost like a secret hideaway. We parked the car and decided to stay there. Before heading into the water, we inflated our floating rings and float mats. To be honest, I'm not much of a swimmer, so my floating ring was essentially my lifeline. The day was perfect, clear skies, calm waves, and no crowds. We swam, played with a beach ball, and drifted around on the float mats. While we were enjoying the water, Tanaka suddenly announced he needed the bathroom. "If you're going to take a piss, just do it here," I joked. "Shut up. I saw a toilet over there," he replied, heading off toward the beach. After Tanaka left, I decided to take a break too. I lay down on my float mat near the water's edge and let the gentle waves rock me. About 10 minutes later, I heard a voice calling out from the sea. "Oi." I looked around and saw a figure that looked like Sato, waving at me from a little way offshore. "Oi." "What? Did something happen?" I called out, but he didn't seem to hear me. He just kept waving. Curiosity got the better of me, so I paddled my float mat out to him. "Hui. What are you doing? You know you can't swim well," I called, getting closer. But no matter what I said, he simply repeated, "Hui." Something wasn't right. When I got closer, I realized this wasn't Sato. The person had a similar height, but upon closer inspection, it was a completely different man. What struck me even more was that he had no floating ring, and there was no way Sato, who swam even worse than I did, could be out here without one. The man stopped calling out and just stared at me, his face completely expressionless. Fear shot through me. I turned my float mat around and tried to head back to the shore, but the tide was too strong. No matter how hard I pushed, I couldn't move forward. Suddenly, something grabbed my right ankle with tremendous force. I was pulled into the water. My hand slipped from the float mat as I struggled, thinking, I'm going to die. My lungs burned as water filled them, and I could feel myself losing strength. Just as I thought it was the end, a surfer appeared and pulled me onto his board. He took me back to the shore while I gasped for air, coughing up water. Tanaka and Sato rushed to my side as I stumbled onto the sand. "Hey, are you okay?" Tanaka asked, his face pale. They turned to the surfer. "Thank you for saving him." "Sorry for the trouble," Sato said. The surfer shook his head. "No need to apologize. I'm just glad I noticed him in time." But what?" Tanaka asked, alarmed. "You'd better stop swimming here," the surfer said. When I was pulling him onto my board, I saw it. There was a man hanging onto his foot, dragging him down. That wasn't human. When I looked down at my right ankle, there was a bruise shaped like a hand. Later, I learned that the area was off limits for swimming due to strong currents, and locals avoided it entirely. Even now, whenever I hear a voice calling out, I freeze, haunted by that day. This happened in 2021, in the middle of summer at Myrtle Beach. My boyfriend and I had just gotten a suite on the beach to celebrate our 4-year anniversary. We had walked along the beach until around 11 p.m., when we decided to go back to our room since my boyfriend's stomach was bothering him. We got back to the room, and he decided to lie down. I went out onto the balcony to watch the ocean under the night sky. Our hotel room was between the 5th and 8th floors, and the beach was completely lit up for miles in both directions. A lot of teenagers were on the beach directly below me, partying and shooting fireworks. I watched, entertained, as they launched a huge firework into the sky. Suddenly, without thinking, my eyes instinctively landed on a man standing behind the boys. I saw this man so clearly. He was a black middle-aged man wearing a white t-shirt and dark shorts. He was clearly distressed. Without hesitation, the man turned around and started running down the beach, away from where the fireworks were being launched. As he got further away, I watched his body begin to vanish. I could literally see the beach through his body until, finally, the faintest glow outlined him, and he completely disappeared. My body froze. I tried calming myself as I made my way to my boyfriend, trying not to freak out about what I had just seen. For the rest of the night, we both heard a lot of strange noises. It started with the toilet seat in our bathroom slamming down and the dishes in our cabinets rattling. We both heard the noises and barely got any sleep that entire night. It was a good friend's birthday, and a group of us decided to celebrate by drinking at Sentosa late at night, around 3 a.m. Since it was a weekday, the beach was empty. We were relaxing on the beach when the birthday girl suddenly stood up, ran to the sea, and started shouting vulgarities. Something strange happened. When she was knee-deep in the water, she turned to face us, but her eyes stared into nothingness, and she started laughing hysterically, like those Pontianaks or ghosts in movies. We knew something was wrong and ran to get her out of the water before she did anything dangerous. Just as she left the water, she collapsed and started mumbling something inaudible. At that point, we knew something was seriously wrong and decided to leave as quickly as possible. Another guy and I, who had helped her out of the water, were in charge of keeping a close eye on her while the others started packing up. Suddenly, she stood up and began dancing like those in the Kuda campaign group. We tried to stop her, but we couldn't. It was as if she had gained superhuman strength. We were completely at a loss. She started waving her hands as if gesturing for something to join her dance. I use the word something because her gestures were directed toward the nearby forest. Fortunately, a Malay man was walking by during the commotion. He began reciting Quranic verses, and she collapsed again, this time unconscious. We thanked him, grabbed our things, and ran to the main road to flag a taxi. Another girl offered to take the birthday girl to sleep at her house. The next day, the birthday girl had no memory whatsoever of the events from the night before. We informed her parents, who then took her to a bomo. The bomo performed some rituals, gave her a talisman to wear, but didn't explain much. To this day, we still have no idea what went wrong, but she continues to wear the talisman. When I was around 9 or 10, my dad decided to move to the Mornington Peninsula in Victoria, Australia. Every second weekend during the summer, when I stayed with him, we went to the beach. Being on a peninsula, there were so many beaches to choose from. We were never starved for choices. I think the decision about which beach to visit was mainly dependent on how tired my stepmom was. My cousin and I had a favorite beach, a back beach with really big waves. They weren't big enough to attract surfers, but were perfect for bodyboarding. I can't remember the name of the beach, but I want to say it was Sorrento Back Beach. I know it started with an S, but I'm not sure if it was as far as Sorrento. It was a super hot day during the summer vacation, and I was staying at my dad's for the week with my cousin. Somehow, we convinced my stepmom to take us to our favorite beach. As a kid, I didn't understand why she didn't like this beach much, but looking back now as an adult, I do. It was always full of rowdy kids, and the water was too rough for a leisurely swim. My cousin had boogie boards but didn't bring them that vacation, so we resorted to body surfing, which is just riding the waves with our bodies and no equipment. We did this a lot since one of the two boards belonged to his sister, and she didn't always let us bring hers for me to use. We were in the water with a crowd of other kids, all riding the waves back to the shore as best we could on our chests. I was wading back out after a huge wave when another wave came toward us. I wasn't out deep enough, and it didn't seem like anything special, so I chose to just jump over it. It turned out to be bigger than I thought, and the water reached up to my nose. Then, something strange happened. I wasn't too close to anyone else in the water, but when I jumped and the wave lifted me up, my right foot connected with something. It was round, covered in something that felt like hair, and distinctly head-like. I don't know how, but I just knew it was a head. It felt cold and clammy. As I mentioned, there wasn't anyone close to me before the wave hit, and there was no one around me afterward. Terror swept through me, and I raced toward the shore. I looked back several times, but never saw anyone come up, even as other kids went into that same spot. I kept replaying the moment in my head, trying to make sense of it. Was it a dead body? A kid pulled under, who just happened to be in the exact spot where my foot was. A prankster? If it was a prank, surely they would have laughed about it with their friends, but I saw no one emerge. And why was it so cold? If it had been a dead body, the beach would have been closed, but it wasn't. I never heard anything about it on the news either. I avoided telling anyone what had happened and was never keen to go back to that beach. Anytime we did go there, I made sure to stay close to the shore and never went out too deep. One summer, my good friends and I went to the beach. At first, we were having fun, but then one of my friends suddenly said, "Hey, let's jump down from there," pointing to a small cliff. "It's a good place to jump in and play," he added. The cliff wasn't very high, but when I was little, I never had the courage to jump in. Since it had been a long time since we'd last gone to the sea, we were all excited and immediately started running toward the cliff. One of my friends brought a camera that day, so we all struck funny poses to make memories. We took pictures of ourselves mid-jump and played around for a while. Then someone said, "Huh? Noriko? Where did you go?" We realized Noriko was nowhere to be seen. We searched around the beach, but couldn't find her. Worried, we went to the watchman and asked him to help us look for her. Despite our efforts, Noriko was still nowhere to be found. Everyone began fearing the worst. "Maybe she's in the sea," someone said. As the sun set, the watchman assured us, "I'll continue searching as best I can. You should go home." Reluctantly, we left. About a week later, Noriko was found. Unfortunately, it was exactly as we had feared, she had drowned in the sea. We were all devastated, but we thought, at least we could give Noriko's family a picture of her having fun at the beach. Her last memory, a happy one. However, the owner of the camera, Yutaka, didn't seem enthusiastic about sharing the pictures. When I asked him about it, he said there was something strange in the photos. We were shocked by his attitude and didn't talk to him much after that, but eventually, he told us to come and see the pictures for ourselves. In the photos, we saw everyone having fun, including Noriko. "What's the problem?" "It's a good picture," someone said. Yutaka replied, "Watch until the end." The last photo was of Noriko jumping into the sea in a playful pose. But behind her, many white hands were clearly reaching out from the water. It was the summer of 2018, and my friends and I often went to the beach at night to escape the heat. We didn't have air conditioning at home, and the ocean breeze was always a welcome relief. One particularly hot day, my friend Mark called and suggested heading to the beach for a couple of beers. I agreed without hesitation. Mark tried to get two of our other friends to join us, but they were busy, so it was just the two of us. Instead of our usual spot, Mark suggested a quieter beach a little farther away, one he'd visited recently. We packed our backpacks, hopped on our bikes, and rode for about 25 to 30 minutes until we arrived. The beach was more secluded, with a small overhang and steps leading down to the sand. There were no benches or amenities, so we sat on the sand and opened a couple of beers. Mark mentioned that our friend Jay planned to join us after work in about 45 minutes, bringing more beer and some weed. It seemed like it was going to be a great night. The sky was clear, the moon almost full, and the ocean breeze was perfect. After about 20 minutes, Mark pointed out a figure on the beach to our left, about a mile away. It looked like a man standing there, facing us but not moving. "Jay must be early," Mark said. "Yeah, but what's wrong with him?" I replied. "Maybe he's just trying to see if it's us." "You know how paranoid he can be sometimes," Mark said. "Yeah, true," I said, waving in the figure's direction. "Hey." The voice that responded carried across the beach, but it sounded unnervingly close, closer than it should have been given the distance. "Come over, Jay. We're here," Mark called out. The figure didn't move. "Hey," the voice came again, closer but still distant somehow. This time, unease crept over me. "Mark, I don't think that's Jay," I said. "Yeah," Mark murmured. The voice grew more distorted each time it called out, sounding drawn out and unnatural. I squinted, trying to get a better look, but suddenly the figure seemed to fade away gradually until it disappeared entirely. "What the hell?" Mark muttered, visibly shaken. "We should leave," I said. "Hey." This time the voice came from behind us, right in my ear and all around us at the same time. That was enough. We grabbed what we could and bolted to our bikes, fear coursing through us. We didn't stop riding until we reached home, where we finally paused to catch our breath. In the eerie silence, I remembered Jay and called him. He was still on his way and had just reached halfway. I told him to come to my place instead, offering no explanation. When he arrived, we recounted the story. Jay laughed it off at first, but seemed a little unsettled. Whatever we experienced that night, I'll never forget it. I've avoided beaches at night ever since, and we never returned to that secluded beach. This happened to me on the Gold Coast, Australia, around 2003. My family and I were visiting one of the many beautiful beaches for the day. At the time, we were quite avid open-water swimmers. The beach was very busy that day, so we wandered a little further south and found a quiet spot. It was a bit away from the main beach, where the water flowed through a narrow stream from the ocean and opened into a deep inlet. We spent hours paddling along the shoreline, enjoying the peace and quiet. In hindsight, perhaps we should have wondered why we were the only ones swimming in this particular spot. After a while, we stopped for lunch. Once we finished, my mother and I, being fitness fanatics at the time, decided to race each other across the inlet. We plunged into the water and began swimming. About halfway across, I started feeling strange. I can't fully explain what it was, neither fear nor panic, but something felt wrong. I was overcome with an urge to get to the shoreline as quickly as possible. My mother seemed to sense it too, or perhaps she was just caught up in the race, because her pace quickened as well. When we reached the other side, we climbed onto the shoreline and started walking back to rejoin the rest of the family. We were chatting and laughing when my mother suddenly went silent, her gaze fixed on something ahead. I followed her line of sight and saw a sign that hadn't been visible from where we had been swimming. My stomach dropped as I read it: "Bull sharks inhabit this inlet. Swimming strictly prohibited." A wave of cold fear swept over me. For those who don't know, bull sharks are among the most aggressive shark species. While most sharks are shy and tend to avoid humans, bull sharks are highly territorial and far more likely to attack unprovoked. 2 weeks later, I read in the newspaper about an 80-year-old man who was killed by a bull shark while swimming in that exact same spot. To this day, it haunts me to think how close we came to a similar fate. I replay that moment in my mind, imagining the two of us flailing atop the deep, dark water. Dozens of beady black eyes could have been staring up at us, any one of them waiting for the perfect moment to strike. How easily it could have been us. Looking back, I cannot fathom why we ventured out there. Yet there we were, helpless, exposed, and vulnerable, utterly unaware of the danger lurking just beneath the surface. Thanks for sticking around till the end. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to give the video a like and leave a comment with your thoughts. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a terrifying tale. See you in the next one.